All right, we are back with communism in the journey to the Eastern Hemisphere. So, this is our first introduction to communism in our house. So, communism is a political and economic ideology. That means communist beliefs affect all aspects of government, citizens' rights, property, resources, production, and more. It is based on public rather than private ownership and government control of most major industries. So again, it is based on public rather than private ownership and government control. Here, that's an important thing to know. Government control of most major industries. Communism is related to socialism, a set of beliefs based on communal ownership. However, communism more closely follows the doctrines of Marxism, a worldview developed by German philosopher Karl Marx. So, communist, and here's a photo of Karl Marx. If you've never seen him, this is that German philosopher. So communist governments are dominated by a single political party that adheres strictly to communist ideals. They own all the country's means of production, factories, mines, as well as the land, everything. Although it promises to provide financial security and economic equality for all, communism results in a fairly poor general population with a few extremely wealthy leaders. And this is something that is very, very common in all communist countries. You have a very poor general population and you have a very small group of rich people. Again, the country, that the Communist Party, the communist government, they own all of the country's means of production. Production means money, factories, mines, lands. So communism roots. As far back as the 300 BCE, ancient Greece wrote about communal ownership of property. The early form of communism, based on the Latin word communis, proposed ownership of all property and goods by a ruling class. Those rulers would have to put the welfare of the state above that of the individual. In the 1800s, Karl Marx published his radical ideas about government in the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital. These writings criticized capitalism, the economic system in which private citizens own the means of production and set their own prices. So Marx believed that all the problems of history were caused by class struggles. He thought that owners and managers, which he called the bourgeoisie, kept all the profits in production and treated workers poorly. The workers, or the proletariat, on the other hand, labored long hours in unsafe conditions, yet had a lower standard of living. Marx felt sure that a coming revolution would establish common workers as the ruling class. His writing was so inflammatory that he was expelled from his home country of Germany, as well as France, and Belgium. Now we're moving to communism in practice. In a capitalist economy, private parties, individuals, or corporations own land, factories, and other means of production. They decide what goods or services to provide, how much to produce, what prices to charge, and which workers to hire. In a communist system, on the other hand, the government makes these decisions and more. Central planning means that the government owns all production and directs all economic activity. This nationalization or government control allowed for the rapid industrialization of communist countries. The Chinese Communist Party. Communism came to China in 1921 in the form of the Chinese Communist Party, which still holds power today. Events in Russia influenced Chinese revolutionaries to turn to Marxism. Among the most influential of these revolutionaries was Mao Zedong. Mao began by working with others to organize labor unions in 1920s, when China's government was unstable. At first, members of the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, formed an alliance with the National Party government. However, Chiang Kai-shek, leader of the nationalists, turned the nationalists against the CCP, suppressing their activity for a time. Mao and his followers fled the cities and turned their focus to peasant farmers. The CCP had so much support that in 1931 they established the Chinese Soviet Republic, consisting of 10 million people. They elected Mao as chairman. The nationalist military launched attacks against the Chinese Soviet Republic. Under the leadership of Mao, the communists defended themselves successfully 4 separate times. However, Mao was removed then from his position, and the new leadership was unable to resist the 5th attack. After the Nationalist Party conquered them, the CCP escaped from southeastern China in the Long March of 1934 to 1935. And so what do we think is happening during those times? Other important events were happening in our world during 1934 and 1935. So the communists marched thousands of miles across 18 mountain ranges and 24 rivers to the northwestern China. About 85,000 troops and additional personnel moved secretly at night, carrying all their weapons and supplies themselves. Unfortunately, tens of thousands of people died due to starvation, fighting, and disease. Mao lost 2 small children and a younger brother. However, during the year-long trek, Mao rose to the position of undisputed leader of the CCP. The heroism displayed during the march also inspired many young Chinese to join the party. In 1937, the nationalists and the CCP set aside their conflict to fight Japanese invaders. For about a decade, the nationalists put forth little effort, while Mao's forces grew stronger by fighting the Japanese, building support and gaining experience. Once the Japanese were defeated, the Chinese Civil War resumed. While the United States supported the nationalists, Mao's CCP ultimately defeated them in 1949. The nationalists fled to the island of Taiwan, and Mao established the People's Republic of China, a communist state. With high hopes for a new era, he stated the era in which the Chinese were regarded as uncivilized is now over. We will emerge in the world as a highly civilized nation. Mao continued to lead the Communist Party until his death in 1976. At first, the CCP formed a strong alliance with the Soviet Union, a fellow communist country. However, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the CPSU, was much more open to relationships with other foreign countries, including the United States, than the CCP was. These ideological differences caused the CCP to sever ties with the Soviet Union in the 1950s. The CCP itself experienced a rift in the 1960s when Mao and his more radical followers clashed with more pragmatic communist leaders, Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping. Mao's Cultural Revolution, a plan for economic and social development, caused others to view him and his ideals as too extreme. However, the Cultural Revolution gained momentum, and several of the more pragmatic leaders lost their positions in government. Later, after Mao's death in 1976, Deng Xiaoping took control as head of the CCP. Along with other leaders, Deng put an end to the Cultural Revolution and arrested Mao's wife and other powerful radical leaders. Deng Xiaoping rose to power when China's economy was greatly weakened. Mao's failed attempt to centralize planning and huge communal farms had left most people very poor. China's economic growth struggled to keep pace with its exploding population. Under Deng's leadership, farmers were once again allowed private land. Others opened private businesses. In special economic zones, foreign investors were allowed to manufacture goods to export. With these changes in place, the economy slowly recovered, and the standard of living improved for most people. Today, the CCP is the largest political party in the world. With over 80 million members, it sets policy for China's central, provincial, and local governments. Every 5 years, a National Party Congress of about 2,000 meet to elect 200 members to a central committee. The central committee, which meets once a year, elects 25 members to a Politburo. The Politburo leads the CCP, and its 6 to 9 top members form a standing committee, the highest leadership body in the country. In another branch of the government, the Secretariat handles day-to-day administration tasks. Its general secretary is the top party official. The CCP partly controls China's military. It also publishes a daily newspaper called The People's Daily and a bi-weekly journal called Seeking the Truth. And we will end there, and we will pick back up on week 4 with the Chinese culture.